Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about Mean Girls 2024, this brilliant film that I believe is a spiritual sibling to Dungeons and Dragons. And the reason why is I think Dungeons and Dragons is this incredible work that was done by this incredible creator, which was Gary Gygax. And so Gary Gygax comes forward and he creates Dungeons and Dragons, this absolutely amazing piece of work that is not fully understood. And then I think Mean Girls is the same way. Mean Girls is actually is Tina Fey's fiction presentation of a nonfiction book that looked at hierarchy in high school, right? So what's really fascinating is Katie is the main character of Mean Girls, and she is a hetero with two LGBTQ. She's a hetero girl with two LGBTQ friends, right? Janis and Damian. And what's really fascinating is that Damian is that when you look at Mean Girls, it's an instruction manual on how to gain power. Katie goes from being a hetero girl who literally cannot find a seat in a hetero girl who cannot find a seat to sit in lunch in the high school cafeteria, to someone who takes the most popular girl in high school and says, you are not you can't sit here, right? Like the ultimate diss, right? And so it's a manual for power. But it's not seen as that. Most people don't understand or really acknowledge that, Mean Girls is a power manual, right? Like a manual for human power, for how to gain human power, how to understand human hierarchies, right? What's really interesting is I actually think that when you take Mean Girls 2024 and you attempt to fully understand it, and you take Dungeons and Dragons and you look at the character sheet, you unlock a truth about where we are as humans today. Okay? So let me map it through, okay? So there's this new revelation that was recently found by me about the Dungeons and Dragons character sheet. Every single Dungeons and Dragons character sheet since 1974 has contained the same core attributes, okay? And those are SDC, the SADAC, okay? Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, SADAC, and strength, and the Dungeons and Dragons character sheet is specifically built to explain humans to humans, okay? And so the type of humans we have today are SADACs, people who are good with strength, good with dexterity, good with constitution. They build physical things, right? They do physical labor, right? And then the Esai, the empaths, the sages, and the intellectuals, right? And they align with charisma, wisdom, and intellect, okay? Intelligence, right? So Katie, so Jasmine and I'm not sure what Katie is. I don't think she's any of those, right? I think Katie might actually be a SADAC. I think Katie is a SADAC. But Damian and Janis are definitely part of the Esai, okay? Damian is the empath. He understands people's feelings and he feels deeply, right? Then Janis is the intellectual. She knows. She literally even communicates in the movie that she communicates through facts, right? Really, really interesting, right? That she starts with facts, right? She's an intellectual, right? But Damian is an empath. And in their group, I can tell you right now, Katie does not bring any wisdom. And here's the issue. Damian does not bring wisdom, and Janis does not bring wisdom. But they are the protagonists. They are the protagonists of the film. They are the good guys, right? Air quotes, right? And what's interesting is this is where we're at. This is where we are at in this human stage. We have our the Sadaks are there. They're the rest of high school. They don't really matter, right? Like this movie is about Damian and Janis, right? They're the protagonists, right? Katie's in there and things are happening with her. But the reality is, I think the heart of this film is the empath and the intellectual, Damian and Janis, right? And there's no sage, there is no sagacity, there is no wisdom to be found, right? And this is where we're at right now in human history. We know our empaths. We have powerful empaths. We can identify them. We know our intellectuals. We have powerful intellectuals, and we can identify them. But we do not have our sages. We don't know who our sages are. Do you know who's on the front line to be considered sages today? Comedians. Brick wall and a microphone comedians are considered our only philosopher kings and queens, right? And the reality is, most people are like, are you talking about comedians as the wisest people? Yeah, and you're like, well, wait a second, wouldn't politicians be our sages? Please, number one politician in the race today is opening is please, politicians do not qualify as sages. They haven't for a long time. I think it ended with Jimmy Carter. I think the guy was a peanut farmer, like didn't have any wisdom, right? Like, and I don't think we've had a wise political leader since, right? And so this is where we land. If we use the Dungeons & Dragons, the new revelations from the Dungeons & Dragons character sheet, which I have discovered, and then you apply that to this power manual that was written by Tina Fey, right? You can perfectly understand humanity's current state. Identified powerful empaths, identified powerful intellectuals, and no sages. A lack of sages. Sages nowhere to be found. That's where we are. That is where we are. Truly incredible. And why is that important? Why is it important to know that we have empaths and intellectuals, but we have no sages? It is extremely important. It is extremely important, right? The reason why is you can't fix a problem until you identify it, right? You can't fix a problem until you know root cause, right? And we don't even know root cause yet. All we know is the problem. We have acknowledged and identified the problem. Now we can go about fixing it. So you and me, Dungeon Masters to the last, let's fix humanity. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.